All right, so we're going to welcome to the show Dante Turo. He works for WTP Sports. He also, you probably follow him on Twitter at Dante on Deck. He is a Celtics expert. So welcome onto the show, Dante. We're going to talk a little bit about the draft tonight and kind of Celtics and whatnot. Welcome onto the show.
Thank you for having me, Pat.
Absolutely. This is try number two. For those of
Hmm.
you out there that didn't know, we recorded the whole thing a few weeks ago, and I went to go save it, and it crashed, and so we lost the whole
Unfortunate.
damn thing.
Unfortunate.
Yep.
That
So
was a good interview too. That was really good what we had.
it was good. It was really good. So we're
But
gonna
we'll
we're
get
gonna
we'll
mix
get
it
it this
up.
time.
Yeah, we're gonna mix it up a little bit this time because last time we talked a little bit more about the season, and now we're gonna talk a little bit more about the draft. We might touch on the season a little bit and kind of the Celtics' future and whatnot, but we'll focus mostly on the draft and what the offseason is gonna bring. So I guess first thing, kind of on everyone's mind right now, do you want Kawhi Leonard on the Celtics next year?
When the news first came out that Kawhi wanted out, uh, let me kind of go back. Like during the regular season, I wouldn't have traded for him because during the regular season, like we heard rumors that he might want out, but nothing was confirmed. Like it was just speculation at that point. And
Right.
at that point, like his value was so much higher than it is now. But when the news came out that he wanted out, I mean, when you hear that your star player wants out, like his values drops. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, maybe he can be on the table for a fair offer. So when I heard that, I started thinking I would always stuck by not wanting to trade Jalen or Jason. But if
Hmm.
someone like Kawhi is on the market, I think giving up someone like Jalen should at least be a consideration. But then you hear news that Kawhi and Greg Popovich met, and Kawhi is basically making it known that he's going to go to LA next offseason. So at
Right.
this point, I mean, in my eyes, his value is just plummeted. Like I don't even think I would want to make an offer for him at this point, especially if he's a 1 year. I mean, if you're Danny Ainge, maybe you can think like when we trade for Kevin Garnett, he said he wasn't going to resign. But I mean, look what happened. We won. He came back. So I mean, you can maybe make that risk. But I mean, we're talking about trading away someone like Jalen Brown, and we saw how good he is in the playoffs and how good he can be as a top guy on our team. So I mean, it would be a huge gamble, and I don't think they'll ultimately do it.
Right. I mean, the other problem, the real issue, I think, is what you have to give up for him.
Hmm.
Because you're over the salary cap, you have to make the money almost be even.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
so,
Yeah. So it's not like you're just giving up Jalen. Like you'd have to trade
right,
Jalen, Rozier, Morris, other bench guys, and then the picks. I mean,
right.
to
You'd
make it
have to,
work at that point. I mean,
right,
especially if it's a 1 year, if he's that committed to going back to LA, I mean, it's just not worth it.
right. I mean, basically, because I actually wrote an article about this earlier in the week, and I just looked at the numbers. If it were Kyrie, if you were trading Kyrie, you could do a straight swap for swap, and we'll get
Yep.
into that in a minute. But you could do a straight swap for swap with Kyrie because the money's just about even. If
Yep.
you didn't want to trade Kyrie, you would basically trade everybody on the roster except for Kyrie, Hayward, Horford, and Tatum. It's
Unless Danny,
basically those
yeah,
four and everybody else. Now, if they have a trade exception, which I feel like they had one,
I think they had one, but I'm pretty sure they used that on I think they used that on Greg Monroe or something like that. I mean, they used some exception on
maybe.
Monroe. I'm not sure. I think it was
I
the
thought
disabled
I thought that was the injury
exception for
one. Yeah.
Hayward. Yeah, I'm
But
not sure.
I feel like there'd be more talk if they
Yeah,
actually
I'm not
had that.
sure
I
if
feel
they
like there'd be
have one.
more
I think
talk
they had
about
one
it.
last summer, but I don't know if they do this year.
Because to me, I look at it and say, if we could somehow make Jalen Brown and Terry Rozier and say your first round pick next year, your first round pick this year, or the Clippers pick that we have,
Yeah,
if you could make that work, I'd be willing to give it a shot. And I know you're giving up Jalen Brown, and I know that Jalen Brown is a great, could be a great player, but Kawhi is a great player. And
yes.
Kawhi is going to have to play great this year if he wants a max contract from LA. And so you say, okay, maybe he goes to LA. But if he comes here and we have Kyrie, Hayward, Leonard, Tatum, and Horford,
We're on the same level as Golden State.
right? And
I
and
don't
if
think there's any question at that point.
Right. And then so if it's that situation, then you look at it and say, okay, well, how does LA even get him back? And why would he want to leave that situation to go to LA? How could LA's situation possibly be better than that starting five? And so
Yeah,
that's
no,
really,
I know. No, I know. I don't, like I said, when that news came out, I just thought like his value. Like I don't know any team that would want to trade any good asset for a 1 year rental at that point. It's just great. Like before all that came out, if there was an offer of Jaylen Brown, Rozier, the Kings pick, and even the Clippers and Memphis pick for Kawhi, I would take that
right,
without hearing what I heard before that, because then I would assume, I would think, I mean, we'll talk about this with Kyrie too. I mean, I think that's a good enough situation to want to resign. You know what I
right,
mean? Like, I just don't understand why you'd want to leave something like that. But I don't know. It's Kawhi. I mean, he's a strange guy, kind of like
right.
Kyrie.
It just
Quiet, does his
it's
own
in
thing.
it's interesting with him because it just seems like he really wants to push and build his brand more than anything else.
Yeah, it's
That's
it's
what he
strange because he
wants.
he literally has the keys in San Antonio. So
Right.
it's just a very weird situation. It's not like he's in Kyrie where he's in a toxic environment. Like he's not competing with anyone else for the spot. Like LaMarcus Aldridge is there, but he's not. It's Kawhi's team. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Well,
it's not. I don't know.
I think the real issue is that, I was talking to someone about this the other day. If Kawhi Leonard started talking right now, I have no idea what his voice sounds like. I don't know what now I know what his face
Yeah,
looks like. Obviously I know what he looks like, but I don't know what his voice sounds like. I have
yeah.
no clue.
He's
And
so
so it's like,
quiet.
right. And so it's one of those things where he wants to build his brand, right? And you look at it and say, well, Kyrie's got shoes, Paul George has shoes, obviously LeBron's got shoes. Like all these great players, Steph Curry, even like all these great players have shoes and they have all these deals and they got all these different things. They're doing commercials and they're doing this, and he doesn't have any of that. And so he wants a piece of that. And so I'm assuming he thinks getting to LA will give him a piece of that. That's what I would
Yeah, but
imagine.
then you think too, like I don't with the money and stuff. I mean, he's walking away from so much. If he stayed in San Antonio and
Well,
re-signed,
super.
got the
Yeah.
supermax,
All right.
it's not like you're walking away from like 10 million. Like you're walking away from 40 to 50 million dollars. Like
Yeah.
that's a
Why,
lot of money.
here's the thing, right? And this is the other part of it. I think you look at it and the Lakers look at it, and I'll bet you anything that Kawhi is talking to LeBron. And
Oh,
LeBron is
absolutely.
saying, "I'm going to
LeBron.
LA. You come to LA with me, and we'll start we'll start a new dynasty there, and we'll try to get Paul George involved too. And now all of a sudden you get Kawhi,
Yeah,
LeBron, and Paul George,
I agree. I think that's
with
what's gonna
some of those
happen.
other guys that are there, and then all of a sudden now it's like there's the team. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
because it stinks for everyone else because let's say he were traded to the Celtics. Let's just say he were traded to the Celtics. The Lakers acquire LeBron and Paul George. I don't know if they have the money next offseason to offer him a max contract, even if he wanted to go there. And so
yeah.
so it's like it's one of those things. And for San Antonio, it sucks because LA's got nothing to trade him. They got nothing to give him.
No,
They
they
have
really
like
don't.
Luol Dang, and that's it. And so that's one of those
That's the
things where it's
biggest.
like,
That's the biggest problem for Lakers. They can't really do anything because of that contract. That's holding them
right,
back from doing
right.
so much.
I think what's going to happen is that, and I know they just drafted Lonzo, but I think LeBron is not going to want Lonzo, and
LeBron, if
especially LeVar on
LeBron
his
goes to
team.
LA, which I think he is, he's not playing Alonzo. The type
Right,
of player LeBron is, he's not going to want to get caught up in LeVar Ball and his
right.
nonsense.
Exactly, exactly. And so the one thing I was looking at, and it was who was it? So it was Lonzo and Channing Frye. Now Channing Frye has an expired contract, but they could sign and trade Channing Frye with Lonzo Ball, and they would have to throw in like another bench player or something like that. But like they could do Lonzo, Channing Frye, their first, a first round pick or two, and like a bench guy, and that would be enough to get Kawhi money wise.
Yeah, but
But
I don't think San
that's
Antonio
not
wants
value for San
Lonzo.
Antonio.
No, not honestly. Like I hate to say it about Lonzo, but I just don't think he really has that. much value in this league. But just with his dad and everything, I just don't
Right.
think like
I may
Lonzo
not.
Ball, like
Yeah.
he's a number two overall pick. I mean, maybe last year if it was you were dangling the number two pick, it's Lonzo Ball isn't in my eyes. I mean, you could package him with Ingram, Kuzma, maybe you get something going, but Lonzo Ball
Right.
alone isn't going to get you anywhere.
No, I agree. I do agree. And so it's interesting for San Antonio because the Packers are going to get sucks from LA
Yeah, it's going
unless
to
you're
be
going to get
tough
a
for them to get.
team like Boston. And I honestly think the best place for him to go is Philly. I really do. Philly's got the pieces to do it. And in order to do it, they'd probably have to trade Fultz. And
Hmm.
I know they're going to get that would mean giving up on Fultz 1 year in. He was the number one pick. I get all that. But if you can get him there and you have Covington, you have Simmons, and you have Embiid, and then you put Kawhi on that team, you can try to convince Kawhi to stay. And
Yeah,
I think if you're them, that isn't a bad idea to make a deal like that.
I
And
mean,
unless they like Covington, unless they like Fultz better than Covington, they trade Covington instead. His number is pretty close to Kawhi, so they could swap those two out pretty
yeah,
easily. But to me, I think they like Covington better, so I think they want to keep Covington. And now it's like those are your big four pieces, and you can try to hold on to Kawhi because we have just as much star power as LA does, and you're part of the whatever, like that's. I
yeah,
think you can try to spin it to say we might be able to convince him to stay, whereas most places can't. Unless it's like Philly or Boston, where's he gonna like if they trade him to Phoenix? Like, what is he gonna stay in Phoenix? Like, it's
yeah.
just
That's why a lot of these top teams aren't shopping their picks. Like, I mean, you think Sacramento wouldn't trade the number two pick for Kawhi Leonard if Kawhi Leonard's available? Hell yeah, I would. But if he's not going to resign, then I'm not.
right,
I'm not wasting a Marvin. I'm not wasting a good 8 years of Marvin Bagley for 1 year of Kawhi. You know what I
right,
mean?
right, exactly. I agree. So let's get into Kyrie a little bit because we talked a little bit about you could swap Kyrie for Kawhi. I think that would be insane by the Celtics.
Yeah, that it just doesn't make sense. I mean, you can make the argument like Kawhi is a better overall player than Kyrie, but then you look at it. I mean, just because he's a better player doesn't mean it necessarily fits the team. Sure, Kawhi would be one of probably the best player Brad Stevens has ever gotten to coach, but I mean, then you have no point guard. I mean, like Kyrie Irving he's a lock for top three point guard in the NBA. I think he's the second best behind Curry, but the point is you can't really get much better at that position than Kyrie. I mean, granted, Kawhi is a top three player when healthy, but
So you're saying
you already have Brown, Tatum, Hayward, Morris. Like you have
right,
all these forwards already. Like yeah, Kawhi stands out, but it just doesn't for what our scheme is and like what we have. It just doesn't make sense.
right. So you're saying Kyrie, I'm sorry, is better than Westbrook.
Yes, I would say so.
I like that.
As far as being a skillful basketball player and not just playing the position the right way and knowing, like having a high basketball IQ, I think the two best would be Curry. I think Curry, Kyrie, and CP3 are the top 3 point guards, but
Yeah.
that's a completely different thing. But
Right.
yeah,
No, no, yeah, no. I understand that. I do think Westbrook is severely overrated, but
yeah, I'm not.
that's neither here nor there.
Yeah,
But
that's another conversation.
yeah, yeah. So now the Kyrie Kawhi thing I think doesn't make sense. I think first of all, well, I guess the real question is, do you think Kyrie signs a long-term extension with the Celtics next
What
offseason?
what I think Kyrie is going to be in Boston in 2019. I don't think this is going to be his last year in Boston. I think he's either going to do what players like LeBron and KD have done, where you can do the 1-and-1 option, where you can sign for 1 year and then do the player option the second year, and then try to make more money the offseason or whatever,
Right.
or he signs the extension. Kind of like how we said with Kawhi earlier, like Kyrie like keeps to himself, like he does day by day, like that's how he lives his life. Like he doesn't get caught up in the future. He thinks about what's going on, what he can do today. He's not worried about any extension. And he's when he says that it doesn't make sense for him to sign an extension right now, he's 125% correct. I mean, he'd lose out on $80 million. So
Yeah.
I just hate when all these news outlets, media outlets, like kind of try to twist his words into meaning something that he's just they're just turning into something completely different than what it
Well,
is.
and that's really the big thing is that if for someone that's uninformed, they look at that and they say, well, he doesn't want to sign an extension now. Like, and I would say that it's actually benefits the Celtics that it's not in his best interest to sign an extension this year because that knee issue is not something that happened last year. That knee
Mm,
issue is from years ago. And so we have now a year to make sure he's right. And if he's not, we can say, hey, Kyrie, love you, guy, really mean it, but we can't give you the max. We just can't do that. And no one's going to give you the max because you're going to look at it and say, how is anyone going to give you the max when you can't finish a full season? When you
oh
can't,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
no,
And
I
so
know what you
that's
mean.
so that's the big thing
I
for
mean, it
me
kind
is
of works for both sides that they didn't do the extension because one, Kyrie has the chance of making more money, and two, Boston can get a year of Kyrie and see if he can stay healthy a whole year.
right, right. No, it's very true. And I mean, I think the other part of it for me, and the reason why I think Kyrie stays, and like you say, it could be just 2019, but if he were to leave next offseason, so for people that don't understand, and if you haven't looked at the contract, the way it works is that he's making 20 million this year. He's slated to make 21 million next year. It doesn't make any sense for him to play under that contract. He has
Yep.
a player option for next year. So he's going to opt out. That's going to happen. Because if he decides to leave, it's 4 for 139. So you're talking about over $30 million if he leaves.
Yep.
If he stays, it's 5 for 188. And so, for him, it's just like it's so much more money. He's not going to leave that much money on the table. So he's going to opt out next year, but it's still in his best interest to stay because it's $50 million more if he gets the max here than if he gets the max anywhere else. And so, the NBA is different than say football because in football someone can make a ridiculous offer. The Patriots offered $12 million to Nate Solder this year, which was a great contract extension for a left tackle. And then the Giants made him the highest paid offensive lineman in the history of the NFL. Like it was just like, what are you going to do? Like you can't
Yep.
match that. In the NBA, it doesn't work. You can't do that. It's like, okay, this is the team you're on. That's the money you can get from them. You're not on this team. That's the money you can get from them, and that's the most you can possibly get. And so, if you're not willing to go to the max, well, then fine. But if you're willing to go to the max, it's capped. It's not like another team can come in and say, "Well, we'll pay you, 188 too." Like, no, it doesn't work
Yep.
that way. You can't give him that contract, and so
Yeah, exactly.
it's
And
more
also,
advantageous for him.
it also depends on like if you win awards too, like if you make an all
Right.
NBA team, like you make more money. I think that was one of the things I forgot who it was. I think it was Paul George or Hayward. It was I think one of them may have missed out on a huge extension. I think it was Hayward. He may have missed out on some team or something, and then he got a huge like he wouldn't have made as much, so that kind of what drove him to leave. That it may have been someone else, but yeah, that
No,
could
I,
be a
I
huge
think you're right. I
deciding
think it
factor. I
was,
mean, I
yeah,
think it was Hayward or George. I'm not sure, but
right.
that's a huge deciding factor. I mean, today, I mean, if you can make that much money in the NBA, I mean, it's tough to turn it down, like, especially like for someone like for Terry Rozier, for example, like next off season, like he's gonna be chasing the money because like for someone like him, like his value is so high, and if he can get the chance to make like 20 million a year, like sure you can be on the Boston Celtics and win rings, but if you can make $20 million a year at the age of 23, like you're
Right.
gonna probably want to take the money. So I mean, it's just I don't know. In today's NBA, you don't have a lot of guys that stay around a franchise forever. Like they don't take discounts anymore. Like it's different now.
Right. I agree.
Everyone wants the money.
Well, let's talk about Rozier a second because the draft is obviously we're recording this Wednesday night, so the draft is
Yep.
Thursday night. So that could be tonight if you listen on Thursday. It could have been yesterday if you listen on Friday. It could have been last week if you listen in next week. But the point is that the draft for us right now is tomorrow. And there's been some rumors about the Celtics getting in the top 10, and people have kind of kicked around the idea: is it possible? Is it not possible? I think it's very possible, in my opinion, they can get into the top 10 without giving up Jalen or Jason. They're not going to trade Jason Tatum. That's not
No,
going to happen
no,
for them
he's
to get a top 10
untouchable.
pick.
He's
And
untouchable.
so, maybe do you look at Jalen Brown and say, okay, maybe you could trade Jalen Brown. I don't think they would do that for a top 10 pick unless the guy they love fell and that was the only way they could get him and they really wanted him. I still wouldn't love it, but if that's, I mean, I guess I trust Danny enough to do that. But to me, Rozier is the interesting one because I know his contract runs out, but let's say a team like Orlando, who's drafting number 6, they need a point guard,
Yep.
and they could look at Rozier and say that guy is the point guard that we want as our starting point guard for the future. So you trade for him now, along with a few other first round picks, whether it be the Sacramento pick or the Memphis pick or the Clippers pick, whatever it is, and it would probably have to be some sort of combination, right?
Yep.
Obviously, the Celtics pick this year, maybe the Sacramento pick, maybe the Memphis, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
along with Rozier. And basically the Magic are saying, okay, we know Rozier is going to leave after next year, but he's a restricted free agent. We want him anyways, so we're willing to pretty much match what
Yeah,
anybody
and they have the
what
money
anybody
they'd
makes,
have the money to do
and
it.
they have the
Sure.
money to do it. And so they're basically ensuring that they get the guy they want. If you're gonna try to sign this guy anyways, well, what the hell? Now he's on your team. Now you get to keep him, because even if someone gives him a crazy contract, you're willing to match it because you were willing to go and try to push Boston out of the equation. So
Yep.
you know what I mean? So it could work out in the Celtics' benefit where it's like, yeah, I mean, Rozier's got an expiring contract. However, another team may look at that and say, well, we want him anyways. Now it's just kind of doing it a year early.
Yeah. I think if the Celtics make I think the Celtics trade to the top 10, which I think is likely. I think there's a good chance Boston definitely has the assets to do so. If they make a trade to the top 10, I can't see the pick being any higher than 5. So in that case, I don't think Jaylen Brown would be included in any trade. I
Right.
think what the trade would be is Terry Rozier, and I think Terry Rozier makes the most sense, like you said, because he'll be a restricted free agent. He's going to want a lot of money, so you trade him, and you're essentially trading away a $20 million contract if you think about it.
Right.
So you trade that away, and then you get a young guy who's going to have his rookie contract on the books for 4 years. So that also gives you room to re-sign Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum when the time comes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just you're looking at it like next year. Like if we bring Terry Rozier back next year, like we'll be loaded. But if we trade him for a guy this year, who I'm assuming, I think there's a couple guys that Danny Ainge loves this year. I think they're in the top 10. I don't think you can go wrong with a pick. I just think there's just so much talent in this draft. But I think if they get someone like Mo Bamba, like he'll have an immediate impact. So it's not
Right.
like we're trading away Terry Rozier for no one. That won't help us next year. Like we'll trade for someone there, and you never know. Like some guys can slip. Like you've heard of Luka Doncic. If he doesn't go 2 to Sacramento, he could slip all the way down to 5. If he slips to 5, Dallas might want him, but let's say Boston wants him that bad, they try to slip up for him. Maybe in that case, if they really
Right.
want Doncic, they trade someone like Brown. But like Jaren Jackson at 6, for example, like he could go 3. Jaren Jackson, I think, is going to be a solid starter for a good portion of his career. So if someone he slips to 6, I mean, if you have the assets to trade up and get that, I mean, I don't think you should pass on that.
Right. Well, and here's the other part of it, which is interesting for the Celtics. The Celtics, at least with their young guys, Kyrie, Brown, Hayward, Tatum, they're all guards and forwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any big guys. This
Yes,
draft is loaded with
loaded.
6'11",
Absolutely.
7'2".
That yeah.
That's what it's loaded with. And so it makes sense to go after a guy this year. Sacramento may have maybe a great pick next year, but how loaded is that draft? How good are
Yeah.
the players going to be coming out of the draft?
I,
So you might
I
have number 2 or 3, but it's like, well, the players as good next year as they will be even at 6 this year.
yeah, I think this year I think you have 5, 6, maybe even 7 guys that have all-star potential and a handful of those guys superstar potential. Like Mo Bamba, Jaren Jackson, Wendell Carter, like those are solid big men that would jump right in and help right away
Right.
with Boston. Like Wendell Carter has a very high basketball IQ. He kind of has comparisons to Al Horford, so you can plug him in behind him, learn from him. Jaren Jackson, he's 6'11". The dude's huge and like so versatile, and he's great on defense. Like he would plug in just great. And Mo Bamba, I think he is just going to be a stud. I love Mo Bamba. I would do anything for him to be on the Celtics,
I agree.
honestly. So it's
I
like
agree.
there are a
Yeah.
few guys like if two or if one of those guys is there at 6, I think Danny Ainge is going to be very aggressive in getting that pick.
Yeah. And the other part of it too is that I mean it's great having picks. I mean, having picks is fantastic. But at the end of the day, what
That
you're trying to do
you
is
have
build a
so much of
championship.
them. We have so many picks.
Right. Right.
It's
And
like
it's
we
a
can get
re
rid of some of them.
exactly. I mean, you're rebuilding and you're trying to build the championship. And if you feel like your rebuild not is over, but if you feel
Hmm.
like your rebuild, you're building to the point where all of a sudden now you are a finals championship contender, you have to make that move, even if it makes you give up a few of those picks, because that's the whole point. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
And
we
yeah,
got
that's
those picks
great
for a
in the
reason.
future, but who the heck knows, you know? So to me, that makes sense. Now, I guess the question is, will Orlando be willing to do it, right? Does Orlando look at Rozier and, 2 or 3 first round picks? Again, the Celtics pick this year is basically useless at 27. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
I know a lot of people talking about Grayson Allen, and Grayson Allen's a good player, but he's a psycho and trips everyone and whatever. But like, I understand he has good basketball skills, but it's 27. Like, realistically, it's not. That player's not going to be an impact guy this year. It's possible. I mean, it's happened, but like realistically, it's probably not going to be the case. And same thing with like the Clippers pick worries me, and even like I say, even the Sacramento pick. I think Sacramento has some pieces where they look like they could be a top 5 again, but they could be a top 10 or a top 15. Like, who knows? So I think it's never a bad idea to kind of push it another year out for the Celtics, at least. Like, okay, trade another guy, and, we don't have to worry about next year because we got to pick this year. So if it's the sure thing, go for it. Otherwise, like, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
No, I we have 4 first round picks next year. And for a
Right.
team that's going to be in finals contention, I think the smart thing would do is try to get rid of some of those picks for either a really good pick or another player.
Right.
Because I mean, you don't need 4 first round picks. I
No.
mean, like we're not going to have 4 rookies on our team next in 2 years. If you're a finals contender, you're not going to have
Right.
that many rookies. You know
No,
what I mean?
it doesn't make any
It just
sense if
doesn't
you're
make sense. Yeah.
those guys in the league. It's just stupid. Or
Like
the
we
G League.
got those picks for a reason.
Right,
And
exactly.
I think this is the time that if we want to use them, if we want to get a solid player that we can add to the Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum core, like that age core, now's your time. This is the draft to do it, not next year. There could be some good guys next year. I mean, I don't really know much about it, but this year's draft, there are some guys that are going to be special.
Right, right. Now, let me ask you a question. So we talked a little bit about some of the prospects. Obviously, some of the big names, Mo Bamba and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Michael Porter Jr. and even Doncic. Like, but is there a guy that's, I don't want to say he's flying under the radar, but a guy who's like a little bit under the radar, but is probably going to go top 10 to 15, who
Mm-hmm.
could be a superstar?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I wouldn't say superstar, but I think Wendell Carter could be a solid NBA player for the entirety of his career. I just think the way he plays, his height, um, I just think he has potential to be a really, really good starter in this. Maybe not a superstar, like you said, but
Right.
maybe like one of those guys that you can consider an all-star like when he hits his prime. Like you consider he can be an all-star, maybe he can be an all-star. Not a superstar, but he will be a really good NBA player, I think. I think he's very underrated.
Okay. It's interesting because a lot of people, like you said, are comparing him to Horford. And I think, Horford never gets the attention or the accolades that other guys get. And I think that's just the way he plays the game. But we see how important he is to a team like the Celtics when he's used correctly.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that's all they talk about. It's all the players want to talk about is Al this
System
and Al
basketball.
that. It's just like, if he's used correctly, he can be part of, a bigger picture, And so I think you're right there. Like, it's a good pick because, he may not be that superstar guy. And in that situation, I don't think Danny Ainge is giving up a ton to go get him. because he's
No.
not going to be a franchise altering player,
Mm-hmm.
but he could be a guy who, like Horford, is instrumental in helping guys kind of get to that next level and doing things off the stat sheet. I mean, Duncan was great at that. Duncan was just such an unbelievable player as well that, his talent kind of went above and beyond anything that Horford's ever done. But like he was that same type of guy where he did a lot of stuff outside the stat sheet as well that you didn't see. And it was rare for, someone that good to be doing it. But even Horford is an all-star player. And guys like that typically don't kind of do those dirty things that, that Horford and Duncan did. And
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's just that's the type of guy you want on your team.
Yeah, and I mean, plus he can shoot too. I mean, with any big
Right.
man, I mean that's a plus. And I, like you said, like Al Horford, like he just worked so well in Boston. It's about a system. Like if you fit the system and you are used the right way, I mean, look what Brad Stevens did with Isaiah Thomas. I know comparing Isaiah and Wendell Carter, but like
Right.
Isaiah Thomas went from being a sixth man to a top five MVP candidate. So it's like you can plug someone into a system where I think you can plug in Wendell Carter into the Celtics system and he could find a huge amount of success, whether it's off the bench now next year or as a starter when Al Horford eventually starts to regress and then, guys like Jalen, Jason, and then they start to take over the team. So, and
Right.
then he'll kind of take over that starting role as center. But I think I don't know. I just like the way he plays. He's really good height. He could shoot, good on defense. He has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also think the Celtics, the one thing I've always wanted the Celtics to have for the longest time is a big man that can just run the floor, rebound, and block. That's
Right.
all I asked for. I mean, Al Horford is great at doing what he does, but just I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's not it's not enough.
I just always
No,
think
that's
the
not enough.
Celtics have needed someone like that. And I
Right.
think this, like I said, there are a couple guys that could fill that role this year.
Right. I
So
mean,
hopefully,
Bamba would be unbelievable. I mean,
Bamba would be the
Jackson,
ideal pick. I think Bamba would be the best ideal. Yes,
right.
absolutely.
I mean, Jackson has like 7 foot 7'5" wingspan.
Yeah.
Bamba's got 7'10" wingspan.
And Bamba had a faster time than Westbrook. Like that's
That's
insane.
ridiculous. Dude,
It's insane for a seven
his
foot one center. Oh my
his
gosh.
standing reach, I'm just looking at it now. His standing reach is 9 feet
He
seven and a
barely has
half
to jump
inches.
to
Like
dunk
he
the
literally
basketball.
just like comes off the
No,
like
it's
basically
ridiculous.
stands on
It's
his
absolutely
tiptoes and dunk
stupid.
the ball.
It's
I mean, that's
absolutely
just
stupid.
ridiculous. So I mean, that's the thing is that a guy like that on a team like the Celtics have would be unbelievable. Now, does Mwamba fall to 6? Probably not.
No. Yeah, I think he would. I think
But
he would cap at 5. I think if he's there for Dallas, I think Dallas would probably take him.
right. Well,
If the guys that they would want are gone, of course.
right. And what sucks is that what's interesting is that Isaiah Thomas kind of gets the revenge a little bit on the Celtics because after the Isaiah Thomas trade, after the Lakers acquired Isaiah Thomas, they kind of started playing a little bit better. And anywhere in that 2 to 6 range, the Celtics would have ended up with
Yeah,
that pick.
I know.
And so Isaiah Thomas plays them kind of out of that 2 to 6 range, and they end up at 10. And obviously, Philly ends up with the number 10 pick. Even if the Celtics had ended up with that 10th pick, they would have enough assets to go up and
Oh,
get someone, I
absolutely.
think.
Yeah,
And they just
absolutely.
don't. With 27, it just doesn't equate. But at least
And
at 10, you could say you're still getting a legit guy, and we're going to give you 2 more first-round picks that could both blow through lottery picks. How can you turn that down? You know what I mean? So
I
it's
think
one of those things,
I think another team that might make some noise maybe is Memphis, but I don't know if the Celtics would get involved with that only because if the Memphis is, I think if they trade their pick, they want to get rid of Parsons' contract too, and it just that wouldn't work for Boston taking on that contract.
Right.
I mean, Grizzlies it's kind of like the Magic. I think it would be a great like trade idea. I think them getting Rozier, a young point guard, coming behind Conley for now, maybe deciding what you want to do with him, but uh, taking that contract back would obviously hurt a chance of that trade happening.
Right.
But maybe they can. I mean, if we want to talk trades, I mean, anyone 2 down can make a trade in this draft. So I think this year is going to be crazy. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be interested in moving up and down depending on where guys go. I mean, like Michael Porter, he can go anywhere from 2 to freaking 9. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like it's
Right.
so and same with Doncic. Like it's gonna be a very weird draft. I'm very excited to see what happens. Very
Yeah.
excited.
That'll be fun. It'll be fun, that's for sure. So I'm enjoying. I'll be looking forward to it. You know, the last night of the last school night actually of the year for me. Friday's my last day of school, so I'm like,
That's
get these
awesome.
kids out of my dang classroom, and it'll be it'll be the
That's
last school night of the
awesome.
year, so I'll be happy about that. But yeah, it should be fun. It should be fun to watch. So before we let you go, where can people find you online and interact with you and whatnot?
Yeah, on Twitter you can follow me at Dante on Deck. There I have a link to my blog, and yeah, I cover the Celtics, so I'm trying to keep up to date with everything going on with the draft and everything. So for all Celtics news and all that stuff, make sure to follow me.
For sure. Yeah, no, great follow. And again, if you're not following Dante, like I don't know what the hell you're doing. So now you changed. You had your avatar used to be Rocky from Rocky Four with the
Yeah,
with the.
yeah, yeah,
How come
yeah.
you changed it?
So I think that's actually very funny you asked because I in my head I kind of played out like if someone ever asked me that like how I'd answer, so I kind of have
Yeah,
an
yeah,
answer set up. So when I first made my blog and stuff, like my favorite movies are Rocky. Like I just love Rocky, so I just saw this on sports scene. I thought, oh, Rocky throwing his fist up at the flag, like that's awesome. So I just kind of put that as my picture, and I wasn't planning on doing a face reveal for a while, like until maybe I was even out of school, like until
yeah,
like
yeah.
this became like my profession.
Right.
But my account just kind of just it grew so quick and stuff, and I in my head I was like, I don't want people to think like I'm just a fan account because like that I'm not trying to be a fan account, like I'm trying to be like an insider, like a reporter. So I was like, well, if I want to look legit, like I'm probably gonna want to have to show my face.
Right.
So I just one day I was like, hey mom, I'm gonna put on the Celtics jersey. Like, can you take a picture of me like in the backyard, like looking professional? And she's like, yeah. So it took like 5 minutes to get a couple of good photos, and I got one. And I was like, you know what? It's time for them to know what I look like.
There you
So
go.
that's the story.
Hey, thanks, mom. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we got like it took a couple tries, but we got one we could work with.
There you go. I did a similar thing actually on my personal account. I had the Edelman catch from the Super Bowl.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. When I first followed you, that was your picture.
Yeah, yeah. And so I just this weekend, actually, the Father's Day weekend, I was at Gillette for like a Father's Day thing or whatever, and you got to take a picture. That you got to go in the press room and take a
Uh-huh.
picture at the podium. So I took a picture at the podium with my water bottle that had the WTP logo on it. So I got the WTP logo. I'm standing at the podium with the Patriots logo underneath and like the thing on the back, like I'm answering
Yeah.
questions or whatever. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's perfect. So that's my
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it gets to a point where like if you're working for a company like WTP or like your brand grows so much, it gets to a point where you have to show your face, kind of just to show that you're a real person and stuff
right.
like that. And you're just a normal
Exactly.
person. Kind of how I looked at it.
I like
So
it. I like it. I'm glad that face is out there. Even if it's not pretty, I'm glad it's out
yeah,
there.
you know what, man? People know who I am. That's all I care about.
Right.
It's cool. It's really cool. I love interacting with people. That's the thing. At least people know like they're talking to like one person and not a robot or
Well, right. And that's
something.
what's fun about it too. And I make a point to say this at the end of every show, and I'll say it at the end of this show as well. I, I mean, we're just here to talk sports. Like honestly, like
Yeah,
all of us got other jobs. Well, maybe not. You're a student still, but like I got kids, I got a job. Like, I just want to talk sports. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's what I'm here to do. And so it's like, we want people to interact and start up conversations and ask questions and hey, we want to see this, or you should write about this, or you should, podcast about this, or whatever it might be. That's what we want. That's what we're here for. So, the interaction is a good point. Like that's what we're trying to do because we just want to talk sports.
yeah.
So
No, exactly. Sometimes on my account, I just tweet something just to get people going. Honestly, like I just think like,
right.
all right, let's like something with Kawhi Leonard. I'm like, all right, let me see what I can say that'll
Yeah.
stir up some Celtics
Let's
fans.
spark a conversation, and then you can have
Yeah, it's like, and
people
then
can start talking about things.
I like to hear other people's opinions too because it's
Right.
like I mean, it's good to have your own opinion. You can stick by your opinion, but I think it's also important, especially in sports arguments, to be very open minded and just like, I don't. I mean, like some people you can argue with, they don't have a clue. Like they don't have a clue what they're talking about. Like most LeBron fans, I think. No
Right.
offense to
Yeah.
them,
Right.
but it's like it's I like having good conversations with smart high IQ basketball fans on Twitter. Those who
Right.
I like talking. Some people just like getting my mentions and just like come at me, and I'm just like, whoa, all
Right.
right, let's
Right.
take a step back. Like
Yeah.
I'm just 20. Like, come
Right.
on, I'm just talking about the
Well,
Celtics. Like,
and,
let's not
the
want to
thing
kill me
is too
here.
is that I think some of the best conversations I've had on Twitter are with people that aren't fans of the Celtics or aren't fans of the Patriots
Mm-hmm.
because you can see
I,
things from different perspectives. There's no need to kind
I
of
agree. I very much agree with that. I've had conversations with I think I had a conversation with a Pistons fan once, and we were
right.
just talking about the Celtics and hearing like the what other fan bases think of the Celtics, like hearing that stuff is very interesting to me because it's
Right.
like we're from that Boston area, so like we all hear the same thing. So it's like hearing people from someone from Detroit telling me what they think of Boston, and especially if it's a good thing. Like I don't know, that's kind of cool.
No, it is. Yeah, definitely. So, all right. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Make sure everyone's following at Dante on deck, and maybe we'll have the show sometime. Once the season starts too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy you got to do this again after the last time.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. Finally getting it done. Just make sure I don't. I'll make sure I save everything before anything happens.
all
So, all right, man. I'll talk to you.
right, thank you, man.
All right, bye.